right. Hello, everyone in Facebook land and everyone joining us here on Zoom today. I am so excited to well, first of all, my name is Bridget and I work for the Indiana Arts Commission. Thank you again for joining. I'm glad to be talking about the Indiana Heritage Fellowship and Workshop today with Jon Kay. Jon directs Traditional Arts Indiana at Indiana University, where he also serves as an associate professor in the Department of Folklore. He is the author of Folk Art and Aging, Life Story Objects and Their Makers, and the edited volume, The Expressive Lives of Elders, Folklore, Art, and Aging. He also creates exhibitions, hosts public programs, and produces documentary videos about Indiana's traditional arts, among many other things. At Traditional Arts Indiana, he coordinates a statewide apprenticeship program, a traveling exhibition network, and Indiana Heritage Fellowships. So, Jon, are you ready to get us started?
I'm ready to go whenever you all are.
All right, let's do it.
Okay, great. Well, it's great having you all here. I feel like I'm talking to as many of the Arts Commission people as I am other folks, but we never know how many people are going to be watching us over on Facebook and how many people are going to watch this in the future. So, unfortunately, you're like the farmer who's had the single cow that shows up. They dump all the food on the lot at the same time. So you're going to get everything today. Anyway, again, I'm Jon Kay. I direct Traditional Arts Indiana. We're basically Traditional Arts Indiana. We're based at IU, but we're a partnership between Indiana University and the Indiana Arts Commission. And we exist to identify, document, and promote the folk and traditional arts. I'm going to share my screen so you can see some nice pictures, I hope. Let me get that going for you. And how's that look for you all? Can you see a title page?
I do.
Okay, great. Anyway, so we'll be talking about the Indiana Heritage Fellowship. It's a special award. We're in our third year of doing this thing. But first, I thought I very quickly would overview what Traditional Arts Indiana is. I think those of you in the live feed here actually probably know this, but we're a partnership, as I said, between IU and the Arts Commission. We're recognized by the state as the official statewide service organization for the folk and traditional arts. We receive our funding from the university, from the Arts Commission, and also from the National Endowment for the Arts. And so the National Endowment funds a lot of our programs that we end up doing, as well as the university and the Arts Commission. And as I just said, we exist to identify, document, and promote the folk and traditional arts. We kind of have 4 or 5 things that we do. I could always stretch these out into a lot more. But one of the things we do is we do field work. We show up in communities and we interview people about their traditional art, the music that they make, the crafts that they do, the stories that they have. All of those types of things we conduct in person usually. Field work with them, we'll photograph them working, make recordings of them. And that's where we get our information. That's how we find out who's out there in the world and what wonderful creative things that they're doing. From that information, we often will make traveling exhibits. We have a rotating exhibit network that tours free of charge single panel exhibits to over 30 libraries around the state of Indiana. We also have an apprenticeship program. We just this last weekend had our kind of inaugural convening of this year's apprenticeship teams. And what that program is we have a master artist that has an apprentice that they take on, and we kind of facilitate and fund that master artist in passing on their traditional knowledge to the next generation. And then finally, that brings us to the program we're going to talk about tonight, the Indiana Heritage Fellowship. And this is a one-time lifetime achievement award to a folk or traditional artist who's made a significant contribution to their community and to their artistic form. And so there's a lot of stuff happening there, and we'll talk a little bit more about what that all means. But a little bit more about the Indiana Heritage Fellowships. So the first thing we do is it's a master artist or nominated by someone in their community. You can nominate yourself, but usually what we're looking for is this idea that there's your artist who's a leader within a community of a certain type. And I think you'll see that as we talk about some of the artists that have received this award in the past. Uh, Once we get nominations from people, they're reviewed by an external panel. We don't just pick them. Somebody else helps us with that. These are people who are artists and scholars and community leaders who provide input to us to help direct us in this process. Um, then one other thing before that, before we ever receive them, uh, the Traditional Arts Indiana staff, I have a couple of grad assistants and I'm around. We're happy to help anybody who wants to prepare an application. So if you think you know somebody that wants to receive this, or you think you want to receive it, you can give us a call. We'll talk you through the process. We'll help you think about how to frame your work so you can be as competitive as possible. That's our goal, is to try to help you make the best application that you possibly can. Um, if you're selected, or if the person you nominate is selected, you'll receive the recipient will receive $1,000 stipend, as well as a handmade prize, a piece of art made by a traditional artist here in Indiana, and usually it's something very special that commemorates that specific year. And so each year we pick somebody different to make that work of art for us. And of course, the next application cycle is coming up, the December the 9th, 2020. So you want to make sure that you're paying attention to that. Now, there's a lot of definitions of the folk and traditional arts, and in fact, we at Traditional Arts Indiana work with a lot of different artists that fit in various ways into that idea of being a folk artist or a traditional artist. And we're not necessarily in the habit of saying, oh, you're in and you're out, trying to decide who's a traditional artist and who's not. However, one of the major goals of this program is the fact that we're trying to get people who to become state heritage fellows so that they can be recognized on the national level. When we started this program, we realized that the National Heritage Fellowship, which is put on by the National Endowment for the Arts in Washington, D.C. every year, they hadn't honored very many people from Indiana in the past. And we thought, well, one of the things that we could possibly do to improve our track record as a state is to try to get people and lift them up in the state. So maybe they would have a better presence on that national stage to try to lobby for receiving this type of award. So with that in mind, one of the things that we look for in our artists is that they conform not necessarily to our definitions of a folk and traditional artist, but actually to the National Endowment for the Arts definition of a folk and traditional art. And so let's go through that just a little bit here. Got to move your all's pictures here so I can read this. The folk and traditional arts, which include crafts, dance, music, oral traditions, visual arts, and others, are those that are learned as part of part of the cultural life of a community, whose members share a common ethnic heritage, cultural mores, language, religion, occupation, or geographic region. These traditional arts are shaped by the aesthetics and values of a shared culture and are passed from one generation to generation, most often within family and community through observation, conversation, and practice. So that's kind of the definition that we use as our kind of guiding principle as we review these applications. If we have to decide, is this a traditional art or not? I'm not saying that's the only rubric we use, but that's one of the things that we take into consideration. So let's keep going. The application is made up of various parts. And so I thought it'd be good for us to talk a little bit about each of these parts. And if at any point in here you want to unmute and ask me a question, I'm happy to answer those at any time. So feel free to do that. Okay, so your narrative, which can be up to 4 pages, it doesn't have to be 4 pages, but you've got up to 4 pages, however you want to stack those 4 pages to answer certain questions or to provide certain information. And the information tends to cover 4 areas. Um, One is how the nominee learned their art form. So that has to do with this idea of tradition, really. Where does this art form come from? Is it something that they just taught themselves, or is it something that's been passed down? If they taught themselves, how much did other people around them influence that? How much did that music or that craft, how much was it inspired by the work of other people? And so we're looking for something that's not totally idiosyncratic, but actually something that represents a larger cultural tradition or community or group. Number two, how the nominee's work is relevant to their community. Uh, every community has wonderful artists who do just beautiful work in them, but not all of it is relevant to their community. There are lots of people that work on this kind of national stage of fine art, but it's not necessarily rooted in a particular place or certain social network, you might say. So your role here is to try to say this great individual and their work is important because it serves this larger community or this larger group. So you can see we're constantly toggling between this individual and a collective, moving back and forth there. Okay, number three, uh, any work the nominee has done to pass on their skill or knowledge to the next generation. So that takes into consideration what are they paying it forward? Have they received this traditional knowledge from the past, but also are they making sure it continues on into the future? So people who are teaching or performing or sharing or exhibiting their work, all of that are examples of way that people share their knowledge and skill and maybe work to pass it on to the next generation. Uh, and then finally, for the evidence of the nominee's artistic excellence. We're going to use not our artistic excellence definition. We're not going to use the Arts Commission's definition of artistic excellence. We're going to try to use the community's notion of what artistic excellence is. So you need to tell us why this person is so great. And that may be by saying, oh, they always show up at this festival every year and everyone loves to see them at that. Or they exhibited at the Renwick Gallery at the Smithsonian. Or you could say, oh no, they set up a beautiful display at our local farmers market. Both of those could be examples of artistic excellence. The fact that they're valued enough within a certain context that people want to showcase them and celebrate them. So you would list any events or awards that person would have. And then I should note that your narrative can be up to 4 pages, as I said before. Any questions on any of those 4 elements? I'll keep going then. Y'all are going to get out of here early. In addition to the narrative, there's another thing that sometimes trips people up, and that's letters of support. This is fairly common if you're in the arts world or in the grant making world to get letters of support for something that you want to do. But for a lot of people, it's a little difficult to try to think about, well, who can I get a letter from? We've gotten letters from people who had like their a family member write them. Now that may be appropriate if you've taught that family member your traditional art, or the person has taught a family member that traditional art. That's definitely allowable. But we're also probably going to be looking for something a little bit wider than that. So you may look to, if your artist is within a particular community or group, if they're part of a blacksmith association, let's say. Getting letters from the president of the blacksmith association, or they're members of a quilt guild. Getting letters from the president of the quilt guild, or from the advisory board there, or from a local gallery or museum or arts council or historical society, any type of community leaders that are relevant to that art form. That's what we're going to keep coming back to: relevance to the art form and to the community. Number two, any fellow artists. If there are other people who do that same type of art and they can speak to that artistic excellence, we'd love to hear that from people. So if you're nominating a harmonica player and you're a harmonica player, a letter from you would be great. If you're a bowl hewer and you want to nominate a bowl hewer, that would be great. If you're any type of artist, there's a possibility there of finding another artist who does something similar, who could speak to that artistic excellence, as well as perhaps the artist's leadership within that genre, their influence. Uh, you could get letters from students, apprentices, somebody who they've actually taught, or someone who's learned from that person. That's always meaningful to be able to answer that question of how things pass on to the future. Um, Sometimes legislators or civic leaders are important people. You can get your county commissioner, you can get your town council members, you can get a state senator or representative to actually write a letter on your behalf. We've had all of those things in the past. So basically, what I'm saying is you can have anybody write a letter from you. They don't even have to be just from Indiana, they can be anyone. But the main thing is to make sure that the person who's writing the letter explains why their support matters. Okay? So if you're just writing it because, Bill Smith is a great person, uh, that's not enough. Uh, you want to be able to say, I've known this person for this amount of time. I know them in this capacity. This is what I do for this community, and this is why my opinion matters, that type of thing. So I would focus on trying to get, a few letters of support. You can have as many, I believe, as you want. Usually 3 or 4 is a good measure for doing this. Then the other thing that we ask for are work samples. That could be photographs of the artwork of the person or of the artist. Any type of photos that show the quality of the work, or maybe the photographs actually might show those people in performance with an audience or something like that. All of that works to communicate the successful work that that person does. Videos, if you have videos, you can provide a YouTube link, or you can upload or send to us video files, and we'll happily review those. Audio recordings, we can play those from a whole variety of media that you may choose to share them. Photocopies of newspaper clippings, if they play at a local music festival every year, and there's you have a picture. I want to do a photocopy of that newspaper clipping and put that in there. All of that is useful to us. Any print publications of any kind that they may be part of. I will go on to say that Traditional Arts Indiana and the Indiana Arts Commission and several organizations, we've produced a lot of these things about artists around the state. So if you know that that person has done work with Traditional Arts Indiana, or you know that that person has done work with the Indiana Arts Commission or the Humanities Council, I'd reach out to either Traditional Arts Indiana or one of those organizations, say, I'm working on a nominee of Mrs. X. Would you have any photographs that you could share? And I'm happy to have us kind of go through some of our files and see what we can find to make that available, or any videos or audio recordings. So we're here to help, is what I'm saying. The main thing is for us to make sure that we get the best people with the best application and the best sampling of their work is what we're striving for. Once we get people through the award ceremony or through the application, they get nominated, they get selected. We have an award ceremony where we bring them to Indiana University in a non-pandemic year, at least, and we celebrate them. And we have a large, we'll make a documentary film about them. We'll have the prize that we give to them. We will ask artists to come and represent them, or maybe we'll have them perform as well. And all of that works together to create this kind of celebratory experience there. I thought that next it would be good if we watched just at least a little bit of one or two of the videos that we produced for the Heritage Fellows in the past, so that it can kind of give you a little feel of what types of people we're working with, how we look at the work that they do, and kind of help you think through what that might look like. This first video is with Deborah Bolanos, who you just saw in the photograph before, and she is a ballet folklorico teacher. And I'm going to play this here right now. This is a video that we made 2 years ago that we showed at the Heritage Fellowship program.
My name is Deborah Bolanos. I was born and raised in Chicago. My father is a Mexican immigrant that came here. He served in the United States Army for 4 years. My mom, she decided to bring in an instructor to show us how to dance Mexican folklore. I remember going to see the Mexican ballet of Amalia Hernandez, actually. It was very entertaining, it was very professional. They're an international Mexican ballet that has several companies that travel. And I started with a summer course, a simple summer course, which consisted of Mexican folklore, classical ballet, modern dance, and jazz. A lot of those dances are very hard. They're not easy. And like my students say, well, yeah, Miss Debbie is strict, she's disciplined, and things like that, and I teach commitment and responsibility. Well, that's what I was taught in Mexico City. When I started dancing in Mexico City, I was already 18, so I was there for about maybe less than 2 years. I came back to my hometown, and my mother was still running the dance group and things like that. I started taking over little by little by little until the adults expanded. I started the children, and the children group I started almost 15, maybe 15 years ago or more.
I love dancing ballet folklorico because not only you learn about your culture, but you learn about your traditions and the dances, the dresses, the beautiful colors.
Ms. Debbie is a strict teacher, and she pushes us to do a lot of things. And it's a good thing because if we're not pushed, then we're not going to be able to do anything, or we're not going to be able to succeed or do challenges that come towards us.
Remember? Okay. You know where to make a really good dancer, you have to feel it in your heart. You can dance and be good, but if you feel it and that music starts and your heart is pounding and you get butterflies in your stomach, that's it. I know that you are going to be an excellent dancer. when people say that it doesn't matter if you get involved, nothing will change. You know, if you can change one person, that's better than zero. And I think it's only people that have passion for what they do are the people that understand that. That's what I try to teach them, that it's important for them to have passion in something.
I'm going to pause right there. And I think that one of the cool things about that video is you really can kind of drive several points home for us. One is when we say an Indiana Heritage Fellowship, that doesn't necessarily mean that someone has to have always lived in Indiana, although Deborah has always lived in Indiana. But she practices this tradition that is part of the immigrant community up in East Chicago, Indiana, which I think is really important. I think also the fact that she was a master artist when she was younger, and still a master artist, but her teaching kind of shines through in the work that she does there. The fact that a lot of her work is as community leader as much as folk dancer. And so I think that those are things to look for. The idea that someone is important within a community, I think that she exemplifies that. I've got one more video I want to share with you, and this is on the kind of other end of the extreme. It's a video from this last year's Indiana Heritage Fellowship. It's Bob Taylor. He does a traditional art that has been in Indiana for hundreds of years, wood carving, and he's influenced other people, but now he's not teaching a lot of people, but he has artistic excellence, and he also is very well thought of within the wood carving community. So I think seeing examples of his work too is important.
I'm Bob Taylor, live here in Columbus, Indiana. Have most of my life, except 4 years I was in the Air Force. I've always been interested in wood and doing things with my hands. Since I retired, I've been doing what I call memory carvings of my childhood. That's what I enjoy. I try to put me in all the pictures that I'm carving because they are my memories, and I hope that it will help people somewhere down the line to understand what it was like living here as a child. Well, the story behind this carving took place in the late 1940s. There was a train came into Columbus, and I lived 3 blocks from what we called the circus grounds, which actually was our baseball diamond when the circus wasn't in town. So the train, it said in an article in the newspaper, was almost a mile long that came to Columbus. And so this is my rendition of the circus train parked fairly close to the circus grounds, and they're unloading animals. And my friend and I are standing there watching, wondering whether if we watered the elephant, we could get a free ticket. Many years ago, when I was about 8, we used to go to the fair where Fair Oaks Mall is right now. And when we arrived there, there was a truck by the entrance and a wood carver on a platform explaining what he had in the truck, which he called the history of steam. He came out on the platform, made a few cuts in a little piece of wood, and made a pair of pliers out of them. I thought that was really cool, so I wanted to see him do that again. So that's kind of where my interest started in doing something with wood. When I was in the service in Waco, Texas, I was an assistant scoutmaster, and at that time we wore neckerchiefs, and I started carving neckerchief slides, of which now I have several on the wall over here. The boys were interested in wood carving also. Then when I was discharged, came back to Columbus, I was offered an apprenticeship as a pattern maker, and after 5 years of being apprentice, I became a pattern maker, and 27 years after that, became a salesman for patterns and spent my whole working life in the pattern and foundry industry. When I retired in 1999, I had been carving carvings for all kinds of people, covered bridges, their houses, their barns, different scenes, all on commission. And my wife said, you know, you've always talked about doing memory carvings. When are you going to start? So that's when it happened. So since then, I've not taken on any more commissions, and I've been carving for myself and these memory carvings, of which now I'm working on my 6th memory carving since that time.
So I think real quickly, I think that there's a couple of things to bring out about uh, Bob's work. One is that kind of fires on lots of different fronts. It's traditional, something that's been passed down. He's taught other people. He's talked about teaching carving the neckerchief slides. He also has taught it at wood carving shows and that sort of thing. There's a community of people that celebrate his work, which is important to us. And I think also the fact that you kind of get this sense of artistic excellence in his work as well, that he's doing this work that's operating on a really high level. And so I think those are all things that kind of help to make his application a successful one. And so I think both Deborah and Bob are great examples of the types of artists that we're looking for, not because of the genres or communities and stuff, but because of the work that they do within particular communities and groups and the dedication they have to their art form and to their traditions. And those are the things that I wanted to foreground in this workshop for you today. Well, I'm here to answer questions. If you know somebody who would like to, you would like to nominate, or somebody you think we should at least know about that would be great for this this program, let us know. We're here to help. You can shoot us an email. There's an email address, tradarts@indiana.edu. You can get to us that way. You can type in Traditional Arts Indiana on the website, and I think we're the first that pops up. Or our web address there is traditionalarts.indiana.edu. And again, I should say that we couldn't do any of our programs without the funding of the National Endowment for the Arts and the Indiana Arts Commission. Any more questions? Anybody? Jenny, you know this stuff all by rote, I would imagine.
I do, but I have a clarifying question for you. Anyway, I'm so looking at the different sort of aspects of, you want somebody who's really well involved in their community as well as, excellent at their craft. And I wonder if you can talk a little more about how those things are weighted, are you looking for a good balance of both? Are you looking like maybe somebody who is more involved in their community, or can you talk a little more about that?
Right. I would say that it unlike like apprenticeships where there's you kind of have a score because people are doing one thing. This is more open-ended in a way. There are going to be some people for whom teaching is not a big part of what they've done in their career, but making art is a big part. And so we look at people everyone is an individual, and we look at them as such. And we just are looking for the best example of, you know, and not to paraphrase a Army slogan, but the people who have been all that they could be, you know, that they're the best them that they could be for their community. I would say that of those things, that the connection to the community is the most important aspect of it, of the art form, and that I could see people for whom the artistic excellence part is not necessarily as strong. Maybe it's a medium that, you know, doesn't reward. There's not necessarily higher than other ways of doing things. That may be a bad way of viewing that. But the fact that they're instrumental in their community could outweigh any of those other shortcomings that may be in their work. So I don't know if that helps at all.
Definitely. Yeah, absolutely. Thank you.
So I would say, and all of that then is also through that funnel of the NEA definition of what is a traditional artist, and then also just, you know, just the work that the application is trying to do in that community. You know, the people, how they're recognized within that situation.
Cool.
So,
Thanks, Jon.
I'll just stress again, you're welcome to email me anytime. You can always just type in Traditional Arts Indiana in the Googles, and you can get to us pretty easy that way. And we can answer any questions you might have. Do you have any more that we need to be doing today, Bridget?
I don't think so. I think you did a great job covering everything, Jon. We are going to be uploading this on YouTube later. So if you would like to come back and watch it at a time when it's more convenient, or you can give a little more time to it, please feel free to do that. And we'll make sure in that also to include all of Jon's contact information, so you can ask him anything your heart desires. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining us. Jon, thanks again. You're the best.
Thank you. All right. Thank you. Have a good evening. Thank you, everybody, for coming. I appreciate it. Thanks, Ray. Thanks, Jenny.
Thanks, Jon. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.